Hey friends, the latest episode in our greatest hits collection is my conversation with executive recruiter David Clark from August 2023. David shares keys for approaching staffing, tips for job seekers, and traits that make a good healthcare executive in today's up and down environment. His insights into health tech staffing are even more relevant today, so let us know what you think about this one.
The flow.
All right, everyone, let's get into the flow. Please give it up for my guest this week. I'm here with David Clark, VP of Business Development for the Toland Group. We're going to talk about staffing and a lot of topics that come up in the day-to-day things that happen in our industry. David, welcome to the Healthcare App.
Jared, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the time.
Let's help our listeners get to know you a little bit better first. What would you like them to know about you personally and professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, my name is David Clark. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the Toland Group. We're a healthcare executive search firm out of the St. Augustine, Florida area, just south of Jacksonville. But from a personal standpoint, originally from Memphis, Tennessee, but again, hail in the Jacksonville, Florida area with my 2 kids and my wife and my dog. So we love the beach. Come visit.
I love it. I hope that doesn't lead to any rivalry challenges when you talk came from Tennessee, now you're in Florida. I hope there aren't any challenges there in terms of who to root for.
There's plenty of that, Jared. Obviously in the Southeast, college football or college sports are king. So I'm interesting, though. Born in Memphis, grew up a Vanderbilt fan, not University of Tennessee, which is weird for some people, yet my alma mater is Auburn. So I grew up in Tennessee, went to college in Alabama, and now I'm a Floridian. So now I have to get used to the Gators. Yeah, my wife went to Florida State, so it gets really icky around the Clark household.
Oh, the fall is going to be a great time of year then, man. I'd have to come over sometime if I lived anywhere nearby. That'd be fun.
You're always welcome. The Auburn-Florida State National Championship game a few years ago, that was, we had to put that in our vows with my wife and I. It was a lot of fun. Thank goodness Florida State won for my own sake.
Oh, nice. And glad we mentioned that too. You know, we have to make sure we do that. And of course, leave it to myself to invite myself over to your house. But,
anytime.
Fantastic. What's interesting here, like I said, we're going to dive into staffing. Do you want to give us a little overview of the Toland Group and what y'all do and what areas you focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned before, we're based out of St. Augustine, Florida. We're a healthcare executive search firm. So we'll partner with private equity firms, venture capital firms, their portfolio companies. We work in the provider space as well with a niche in revenue cycle management, but also opcos or independent companies or operating companies. And like I'd mentioned, public companies. And what we do is partner appropriately with the fund, the board, or the leadership team to really assess and identify senior level executives, senior vice presidents, and vice presidents within the healthcare sector. So that could be services, behavioral health, technology. Again, slice and dice that up 1,000 different ways. There's a lot of different sectors we focus in. And of course, we can build entire teams as well. We typically start at that executive level, but again, can get down to that director manager level, building entire teams on a permanent type of basis. And we do that throughout the country.
So is there anything top of mind when you mention approaching a staffing situation for a provider organization versus a PE-backed organization? Is there anything, at the service that might work a little differently?
Yeah, so everybody has different buying behavior, right? Providers or the hospital world has different buying behavior. So if you're in a boardroom with the CFO there, as we all know, margins are very, very tight these days. It feels like reimbursement's decreasing. Lord knows what CMS is doing these days. So those are tough conversations to have simply as far as what they're looking to identify. With the PE-backed folks, typically they have limited partners. So typically they have a good deal of funds in which they can spend. But these individuals are obviously very, very intelligent. So they're looking for qualified individuals, but the negotiation can be a little bit more stringent, if you will, but they have more money to spend. In other words, they will perhaps pay a little bit more for a C-level individual that qualifies for the role. Whereas that hospital CFO kind of looks down at the budget and says, hey, I can only max out at this particular number. So it definitely depends on not only the buying behavior of the person, but obviously the industry in which you're trying to place.
Yeah, I ask that because in the past we've had a couple of episodes that talk about the digital health talent wars, and I think that's one place that manifests is absolutely in whether it's the compensation side of it or just the search approach to things. So we can get into that later, but I appreciate making that distinction because, yeah, they're different groups and then, like you said, different buying behavior. I love that thought there. Well, tell you what, let's start with kind of a state of the state, if you will. We want to talk about how do we approach staffing. It's in the middle of 2023. This is an odd year in all ways. It's not necessarily very predictable, I feel like. So staffing, while it's part of almost every conversation at a large scale in just about every type of healthcare organization, it's seen very differently. I know it's approached differently. And so there are no doubt things that you've seen and heard and experienced and been a part of that can help us just understand the right way to do things, or at least ways that are more effective in this kind of crazy world we're living in right now. So maybe we can start with the state of the job market right now in the industry. I know we see a lot of headlines about layoffs in other industries. Sometimes that creeps into healthcare a little bit, but state of the state, like 30,000 foot view, what's the market like right now?
Yeah, so kind of depending on sector, like we had mentioned before, overall the market remains active, right? There are always talented individuals looking for open opportunities. I think we can agree on that. You know, some folks may come in and say, hey, I can't find an opportunity. They're out there, right? We just need to be networking, connecting, assessing, identifying those opportunities in the market. One huge piece of advice I always recommend is connect, network with people, right? We can press the apply button all day, every single day these days. It is about who you know, right? Because let's be honest, the apply button goes in, I'm sure my HR friends are going to love me for this, it goes into some large bucket, right? And if there's algorithms in that bucket, if you will, and if that resume is not matching that algorithm, you're not even going to get it slated. So I'd highly, highly encourage start building a network. I would tell early careerists that. I would tell my dad, who is retired now, to continue to do that because it is all about who you know and obviously building that trust and that relationship. So I do think we can agree. Again, the talent is out there. It's just matching that open opportunity, and that's obviously what we do. So yeah, there have certainly been some interesting changes and dynamics, especially with pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. And yeah, Jared, you mentioned some of the layoffs. You know, layoffs have been happening ever since mankind was created, right? Ever since we all, unfortunately, that's just part of business. And those that run the business have to make those really, really hard decisions. But there will always be talent because we are people and obviously God-given talents that we can use. And again, the opportunities are there. So like I said, it's about that networking. It's about finding those that can coach, can mentor you through processes like that, or finding partners like somebody like myself or our firm out there that is in the market and can kind of coach you through what the market is giving, the approach, right? Whether it's an executive level or a VP, SVP, whatever that may be, there's resources out there. So try to find them and utilize them.
Are there new types of positions that you're being asked to staff right now? Or are they kind of some of the tried and true types of leadership positions that have been in place for a while? Like, what about the types of positions that you're seeing out there?
Sure. So I know everybody loves this answer, but it's across the board, right? As a executive search firm, obviously the majority of the roles that we see are C-suite. CEOs, CFOs have been the number one role requested and filled for the Tolling Group. But CFOs are certainly blowing up. We can talk finances and why that's so important. COOs, those are really the top three. But then, of course, you know, kind of scaling out that C-suite, CHROs. We've seen chief diversity, chief sales, chief growth, chief revenue, right? Now you're getting into this really CXO, right? So we've seen a really onslaught of all C-level individuals and roles. But then again, we've actually done conferences around this too, the importance of mid-level management, right? The C-suite is so very important, yes, culture, vision, etc. But what about those that are living it every single day, the day-to-day operations, the grit and grind of really keeping the company moving forward? SVPs, VPs, directors, managers, right? Those are all roles, if you will, or titles. And of course, fill in the blank, right, Jared? If it's a CFO starting at the top, then you're looking at VPs of finance, you're looking at FP&As, you're looking at controllers, getting into the accounting world, right? So a lot of finance opportunities coming in. But as far as what we're seeing, again, CFO has been the most popular, but really it's across the board. I didn't mention marketing. I didn't mention HR. Sales has been blowing up as far as business development, because again, that growth that a lot of these companies are seeking now. So it is really across the board on what we're seeing, not only on the individual responsibilities, but the title itself. Again, C-suite or a director.
It makes a lot of sense that, yeah, it's across the board. It's going to depend on those individual needs.
That's exactly right. Just one other thing, you read the articles about all these large tech companies laying off, et cetera. Well, just know that people are also hiring, right? You just don't see that as much. You hear the huge layoffs, but when was the last time you saw a huge hiring, right? Oh my gosh, Meta or Twitter just hired 600 people. They're being employed, right? You'll see every now and then large companies building new plants or et cetera can open this many jobs in communities. Absolutely. But where is the news about all those that are getting hired instead of just laid off?
Seriously, it's so easy to just scan headlines, scan your feed and see, oh, there's another one. I mean, I do. I see it on LinkedIn like all the time. And I'm like, part of me says, like, I know that's not all that's going on, but that's all I'm seeing reported. So honestly, like, that's helpful to know. The organizations aren't going away.
Correct.
There are opportunities out there. What are some of the questions that you get commonly from clients right now regarding staffing?
So timeline. Gosh, when can we have this person in? I needed them yesterday. Right there's this, what do I want to call it? There's this feel out there. If you've never worked maybe with partners, whether it's a search firm, staffing agent, whatever it may be, there's a feel that, us as kind of service industry experts, I'm going to call it in the people business, that we go into our warehouse, right? We get our forklift and grab these individuals off the shelves. They're waiting there. There's the purple squirrel. Well, unfortunately, it just simply doesn't happen that way. Now, we're all connected. We're networked. We have a very large stable, if you will. But there is no doubt that, again, there's this feel out there that, hey, David, gosh, I needed my CEO yesterday. Oh, okay, you can have them next week. That's fantastic. Well, you don't want a CEO that fast, right? You want to do your diligence as far as finding the right individual. And that's all the way down the line. So there is no doubt time. When can I have my individual? Obviously, we get in a lot into qualifications. That's pretty standard. One of the biggest questions now, though, Jared, actually maybe a couple of them, since COVID, two big ones have really popped up. The hybrid approach, so working remotely, everybody's heard that now, but prior to COVID, we didn't hear that much, right? So even our C-suite individuals are being asked, can you come into the office 5 days a week? Can you come in only 3 days a week? Oh, you don't even have to relocate to where our headquarters is. You can work fully remote, and that's across the board. So it's this hybrid approach of where these individuals can be domiciled. So that's been interesting conversation. And then secondly, this is more for really senior leadership, but how do you manage a crisis? What is your crisis management protocol? Where did that come from? COVID-19. Nobody had that in the playbook. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody knew this was coming. So guess what? These senior leaders kind of scrambled to a degree in all sectors, right? This isn't just healthcare, all over the place on, oh my gosh, COVID-19, this is a pandemic. Where's the playbook for this? Maybe there were some out there. Most of what we heard, they kind of had to drum it up on the fly. So post-COVID, bringing us now to current, what is your crisis management protocol? So those two have really been the two, I'm going to say newer questions, if you will. The rest are kind of standard, but those two really kind of come up to top, no doubt.
That's fascinating because they do kind of apply regardless of the specialty or the role. Everyone wants to know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on the flip side of that, I'm thinking about, somebody who is being considered for a position like this. What traits and qualifications are you looking for there? What makes a good healthcare executive today?
Yeah, sure. Another good question. So, when you break down the executives, if you will, obviously healthcare doesn't just do it, right? We all know healthcare is very large. It's very complex. You mentioned digital health. I have an RCM background as well. So it's really qualifying what we call kind of the nuts and bolts of their past and their experience, right? And yes, that sounds pretty straightforward. David, wow, you're a genius. Well, it is, but it isn't, so to speak. So it's really understanding what makes the person tick and their experience within that sector, whether it's tech, whether it's services, behavioral health, whatever it may be. But not only that, it's they've got that experience, but it also has to match what the individual is hiring for, whether it's the PE, the VC, the provider, whoever it is. Just because that person has 40 years of experience in healthcare technology does not mean that healthcare technology company is going to hire them for whatever reason it may be. So there's just a lot of different variables that come in, not only from our clients and what they're asking for, but also the candidate market and what they are asking for. And I will say, Jared, just to kind of add on to that, overall, kind of what we're seeing, whatever executive it may be, a lot of the ask now is how these individuals can roll up their sleeves and get much more involved in the business in which they are in. So, like an example, let's just take that CFO, right? Previously, a CFO may come into a boardroom. That individual has the numbers, right? 10 minutes, here's the numbers of the company, leaves the boardroom, right? Gives the presentation, I'm out. Not anymore. Continuing on the CFO path, these individuals roll up their sleeves. They need to be getting down really into the day-to-day operations, understanding the trajectory of the company.
That really is kind of an evolution, isn't it? I mean, it's been... feels like we've been going that direction, but it hasn't always been all manifest in that same way.
That's exactly right. Again, not know my age, when I was growing up, it was kind of you kind of remain in your lane, if you will. Well, this is just what we're saying, not anymore, right? It's the ability to kind of adapt and flex not only to what the market or the clients are giving you, but also internally and how we're leading our companies these days. I mean, does the CEO, CFO, now depending on the size of the company, right, really understand what goes on day to day? Hopefully, but do they? Or
right.
Those day-to-day operators, gosh, what if a phone call came in from a C-level individual just saying, hey, how's your day going today? Tell me about what you do. So showing that appreciation, which, like you had mentioned, there is some turnover these days too. Last thing we want now is internal employee turnover. We want to keep the people, especially the ones that do a really good job.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that because, from a day-to-day perspective, being involved in this, that helps us to kind of see what you're seeing here. I imagine there are openings that stand out more than others. I wonder if you could just give us an example of an opening that you're sourcing right now and what you're looking for in that candidate. Clearly, don't reveal anything they don't need to, but give us an example of one of the things you just shared in terms of an opening that you're sourcing and what you would be looking for top of mind.
Yeah. So kind of given the audience here, again, we do a lot within the industry, but on the provider side, so when I say provider, hospitals, health systems, so we are currently sourcing a vice president of revenue cycle management. So some people say, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. I love that. Some people may say, what the heck is revenue cycle management, right? It's how hospitals make cash. Let's just simplify that. The reimbursement structures, working with the payers, pretty much how hospitals keep their doors open. So currently we are sourcing one east of the Mississippi for a vice president of RCM. So to kind of give you an idea, right, we have a job description. Obviously, we're working closely with the CFO. who obviously has been very well communicative with us. It's certainly a partnership because this is a top level position in his hospital. So obviously wants to stay engaged. But there's a lot that goes into this, right? It's not only the job description. It's what we had mentioned earlier. It's the qualifications of the individual. It's relocation packages. It's that hybrid approach. Does this individual need to be in the hospital or the business office every single day? Or can they live wherever west of the Mississippi and fly in once a month, right? So we're grabbing all of those details now. And then again, ultimately what we do is we kind of do a soft vet into the market to get an idea of what's there. And how we approach the market is picture dropping a rock where this hospital is and that ripple effect, right? Start locally and then you kind of work your way out as far as the ripples are concerned. So we'll kind of start there, do a soft vet in the market, a few profiles, then we'll re-engage with the CFO. He says, okay, that looks pretty good. I think you guys are on the right track. Or we need to tweak this and that, right? I like what I see, but I think we need to change this experience in coding or collections or accounts receivable, whatever it may be. We then adjust appropriately, move back into the market, and then we do full vets, right? Which ultimately means, okay, we found these individuals and now we're going to put them through our process as far as qualifying for that open role. And, Jared, this could take, depending on communication, right, how back and forth we need to go with candidates, it could take, 8 to 10 weeks. It could take longer. It could take shorter, but they're certainly a lot of fun to work on.
Awesome, David. Well, we're going to try something a little new, if that's all right with you. I would like to try a rapid fire round. So the premise is I'll share a few different types of job seekers, and I'd love for you to just give your top advice, whatever comes first to mind. So don't think about it too much, but let's try these one by one. Let's start with, ready for this first one?
Oh, man. All right. You're putting me to it. I got it.
All right. The first one is early careerist.
Early careerist. Yeah, get involved. Early careers, if that's in college, 1 to 2 years out in the industry, get involved, meet your people, build trust. But I would also say find a coach, find a mentor, perhaps maybe 5-10 years ahead of you, if not more, 10 plus years, that you really put a lot of respect in, I'm going to say trust again in, because that person can kind of help you along, because there will be bad days for the early careers. There's going to be great days, don't get me wrong. There will also be bad days where it's going to be, wow, why did I do this? What am I doing? I should have chosen a new career. Stick to it, stay in there, get a great coach, build trust, connect with your colleagues. And like I said, it doesn't ever hurt to introduce yourself to the leaders of your organization as well.
Fantastic. All right, our second one, you ready? Our second one is middle manager.
Middle manager, I would say, similar to early careers, I'm going to say them for all. So hopefully I don't get hurt after that. Find a coach, find a mentor that continues to pull you along. Middle management, it's an incredible responsibility there too, because I feel like a lot of the day-to-day grit and grind gets put on you. Early careers, no offense, but you're still kind of learning. Middle management, you're in the grit and grind. You're looking for that next opportunity to get to upper level management. So how do you do that? Coach, mentor those early careers, right? You may not be able to make it to that upper level until you find perhaps a replacement for you. So show that you can lead, show that you can coach, show that you can mentor, continue to outperform, meet KPIs or whatever it may be, right? But I'd also say believe in yourself, but don't take a step backwards. In other words, if you're middle management, if indeed you are wired to continue your career, keep going. Don't stop and say, gosh, this is too hard. I want to go back to whatever role I was just in because I didn't know it was going to be this much responsibility. I'd encourage you not to do that. But obviously, people are wired differently. So hopefully that helps. And I'd say definitely at this range in early careers too, find some good books. Those leaders that have shown what they have done, how they've done it, how they've gotten through their career. So find some good books too.
Very nice. And last one here. David, you ready for this one? The last one, I think this will be your favorite, C-suite or executive leader.
Our favorites, right? Find a coach, find a mentor. You could be 75, right? But there's probably a 90-year-old out there that can tell you something you didn't know today. no doubt. So I'm going to keep that across the board. For the C-suite individuals, I'm sure those people are probably already reading and investing in how they continue to adapt and flex. Get to know your other C-suite members. Like I had mentioned before, understand the rest of the company. What do your SVPs, your VPs, your associate, your analyst, what do they do on a daily basis? Pick up the phone and introduce yourself to somebody new every day, right? That, at least for me, would tell me, oh my gosh, my CEO, what an incredible person. He or she didn't just have to call me, but they did. They have no idea who I am. So I'd say really, really invest, over communicate, make people feel like they're valued and appreciated in your organization. Because like we had mentioned earlier, Jared, yes, you don't see all the job opportunities, but they're out there, and people will jump to other jobs based on whatever it may be, right? And a lot of that comes from our C-suite individuals.
David, that's outstanding. Thanks for giving us so much to think about today. For our listeners who want to learn more about the Toland Group, the work you do, and just to connect with you personally, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, well, first off, Jared, really appreciate the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. Been great to get to know you. So thank you. Thank Healthcare Wrap. And you can search us at thetolandgroup.com. That's THE, Toland's TOLAN, group.com. Again, we're out of St. Augustine, Florida. My ugly mug is on the website, so you're welcome to reach out anytime.
Well, thanks again. And with that, that's a wrap for this episode. I've had the pleasure of speaking with David Clark from the Toland Group. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please spread the word. Tell your colleagues to tune in for all the awesomeness, then leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. This show is produced by Shift Forward Health, the channel for changemakers. Subscribe to Shift Forward Health on your favorite podcast app, and you'll be subscribed to our entire library of shows. See our full lineup at shiftforwardhealth.com. One subscription, all the podcasts you need, and it's all for free. And remember, we might have a lot of work to do in healthcare, but we'll get there faster together. Thanks again.